This video is brought to you by Harold Sack, who gave me a massive 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon. Kodama of the West Tree versus the First Sliver, Lonis, and the Dragon. Yes, pretty good hand. We can get some ramp going into our commander. We will keep turn on play in Telgelad Stylus, and we're getting to a Sylvan Library, likely to go Nature's Law before that. Then a couple of blue mana being held up here, so we'll have to see if they want to counter the first spell they see. Draw into Song of the Dryads, and they are holding up priority over here, so looking to counter something. And then it's an Ancient Tomb for the Dragon, so taking a turn off making some coloured mana, but that does allow them into Garruk's Uprising. First commander is Lonis, Cryptozoologist, passing through the turn again with 3 mana held up this time. We get into a forest, which actually makes a difference, so I was just going to go for the Sylvan Library there, but we will try the Fangren Fistborn here. Played with this commander a few times, and people do seem to be really scared of Kodama of the West Tree. Yeah, I think it's better in the 99, to be honest. I haven't played it with auras and equipments and stuff, so maybe that's a better way to build it, or a mixture of all 3 of the ways to modify creatures. This is a plus counters build, and haven't had roaring success with it. Shrieking Drake for Lonis, and that does come in and just bounce itself back, which is pretty typical with Shrieking Drake. You see this used a lot in Animar, so they do get a token there for that. And then it is a bounce land in the form of Guildless Commons, and they bounce the island back to hand with that. Lonis swings in at the First Sliver, and then seeing a Sanctum of Calm Waters, so looks like it's a Shrine deck. Shrines and Slivers maybe? That'd be a strange combination. Anyhow, get ourselves into an Ancient Tomb, so this is going to get a plus counter when it swings in, which will get us a Rampant Growth with the Kodama. So we could play Ancient Tomb, have 3 mana left over. Yeah, I think we're just going for Sylvan Library after the commander anyway, so let's get the Gaia's Cradle out, and we can swing in at the Dragon player. I don't want to leave either a Dragon or a Sliver deck alone. Got to get the damage in early with these decks. That's not to say that you can leave a Simic player alone for any length of time either, though. Anyway, like I said, the beast gets a plus counter on itself, so that lands Kodama of the West Tree gives us the Rampant Growth, and then we'll just end our turn with the Sylvan Library, going to get some card draw at the beginning of our turn. Vampiric Tutor during the upkeep for the Dragon, and they play themselves a Mana Confluence, then going for Oracle of Muldiah, hopefully get some lands off the top. They do not. That will fix their mana though. That's a Chromatic Lantern on top. I think they also snuck down an Overgrown Tomb there as their extra land for the turn. Marwyn the Nurturer for the Lonis. And then sacrificing the clue tokens that they had. And activating Lonis' ability there. Doesn't look like they did too well with that though, so just passing the turn over to the 5-colour player. Sanctum of Calm Waters is going to trigger and only draw them 1 card, thanks to only having 1 Shrine in play. Demon's Horn now. It seems as though it's just a bunch of random cards all mixed in together. Anyway, Sylvan Library triggering for us. We will draw 2 additional cards. And okay, it's a couple of lands and the Emerald Medallion. Don't have many means of shuffling in this deck. I didn't bother putting the fetches in here. Are we going to go for the Rishkar's Expertise? That's probably a good idea. So we're going to take a total of 10 damage this turn if we go for the Ancient Tomb as well. I'll have to start being careful. I'll go for Ancient Tomb. We'll go Emerald Medallion first, and we'll end up tapping near enough the same number of lands, but we'll have some ramp. Rishkar's Expertise is going to draw us 5 cards, and we'll get a free spell. That's not too good actually, is it? So I'll probably go for E-Witness onto the Rishkar's Expertise. Let's just get the Lightning Greaves in for free. And there's not anything particularly great to get with Crop Rotation. That's really for Ancient Tomb and Gaia's Cradle, so I think we're just going Hardened Scales, and then we'll get twice as many counters when we swing in here. We'll protect our counter enabler. Oh, actually, we've got Aurum Reef the Vastwood, haven't we? So, yeah, might as well go Crop Rotation onto the forest here with the floating mana. Yeah, I forgot about that. That is another means of putting counters on our stuff. Could also protect our life a bit more with the Ancient Tomb and Yavimaya. But I think I quite like Aurum Reef the Vastwood here. And if we get enough lands into play, we don't necessarily have to tap down the Ancient Tomb that much. So let's go the Beast in to the right, and Kodama can try and get rid of the Oracle of Muldaya. So that's 2+ counters on all of our stuff, and hopefully get a couple of Rampant Growths here. Drew into Vigor as well, by the way, which is a combo piece, but it can protect us against big swings as well. Not necessarily going to help us too much against the Dragon player unless we've got a lot of reach. Well, both of them hit, so we get 2 Rampant Growths here. We see Akroma's Will on top of our opponent's library now, which is worth knowing about. They play the Chromatic Lantern as soon as they can. Noteworthy that they've got their own Ancient Tomb over here. And then bolting in Agadim the Undercrypt. Ataka World Render might be something that we have to put Song of the Dryads onto. They are down to 0 cards in hand over there though. They will draw when the dragon enters, thanks to the enchantment. So drawing into that Akroma's Will, they've now got Verdant Catacombs on top, which they can play, I think. Not playing the Verdant Catacombs, maybe they dropped 2 lands that turn, I can't remember. Rex Sage into play now. Do they go Lightning Greaves, Sylvan Library? Maybe mess up the colours over here. Dare say they're looking at us. Anyway, get triggers on Lonis and Marwyn. This might be a Simic Elf deck. Rex Sage goes on the Hardened Scales instead, alright. Shrieking Drake being played once again. And bouncing itself again. And after that, I haven't seen this one played yet. It is Cemetery Prowler. It's a good card though. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. Might be relevant against us. For grabbing combo pieces back and stuff. Spells you cast cost 1 less for each card type they share with cards exiled with it. So they exiled the Hardened Scales underneath that. And then going for Lonis, sacrificing, I think it was 3 clues they had there. Oh, and getting a Commander's Plate from us, that's not good. That's curious. The 5 colour player just deciding to pass the turn there, missing red still at the moment. Holding up a bunch of blues, always worrying. Okay, Nature's Claim could blow up the Commander's Plate. And then there's a land, Incubation Druid as well. Let's throw a land on top and keep the Incubation Druid. And then we can go land. I'll get out the E-Witness here. And we're going to grab back the Rishkar's Expertise. I suppose we could actually grab back the Commander's Plate, couldn't we? Well, we could have done. It's asking us to pick our target now. But that's a play that we could have made, gone for Nature's Claim onto this, and then picked it back up with E-Witness. I think going for the card draw is usually the better thing to do anyway. And then let's go for the Incubation Druid, because we can give it haste. And then we'll go for this Rishkar's Expertise as well. Really making use of the Emerald Medallion here. It's gaining us a lot of life, or a lot of mana even. Now then. Defense of the Heart is pretty good. We can grab some combo pieces maybe with that. We need the Walking Ballista really, which will come in with 0 counters as it stands now. But that's not the type of thing that I want to cast anyway, so let's just have Defense of the Heart sat in play. And then we can go for the Vigor here, I think. Will only cost us 5 mana. And finally we can go for the Aurum Reef. That'll put a plus counter on the summoning sick creatures. Then Lightning Greaves over to the Incubation Druid, can tap it for mana. And because it's got a plus counter, it can now add 3 mana. So maybe Song of the Dryads onto the Ataka, and we'll try and get rid of this player as quickly as we can. Let's also go Khemri's Transformation onto the Lonis. We'll try and deal with that commander. This will also draw us a card. So that removes all the abilities from the Lonis. They won't be able to do anything about that. It's noteworthy that they could knock it off if they could get protection from green, but with their commander's colour identity being green, the commander's plate won't work for that. Hex Drinker is a means of putting counters on itself and therefore being modified. Let's give haste to the Vigor, and then I'm going to turn everything in sideways at the Dragon player. So the Fistborn is going to put a single plus counter on all the attacking creatures, and they decided not to block there. They had the Oracle of Muldaya that they could have blocked with. I mean, we had Trample, but thanks to the Kodama, I'm not sure if they blocked with the Oracle or not. I'm not sure. Oh, they're at -4, so that would have only saved them 2 damage. So yeah, that is that player dealt with. Didn't actually work out if we were going to take them out there. Anyway, we get 3 Rampant Growths from the West Tree. And fully tapped out here, we should probably just continue to protect the counter enabler here. Can't guarantee that we're going to be dealt damage for counters with Vigor. Shrieking Drake into play once again. This Lonus player hasn't been able to get going very quickly, unfortunately. And I'm not entirely sure what this player's doing. The Rex Sage back into play once again, so they bounced it with the Shrieking Drake. And a wise move would probably be going after the Defense of the Heart here. Or maybe they want to free up their commander. Yeah, Rex Sage freeing up their commander with Khemris Transformation, so that kind of saved the Defense of the Heart maybe. Plenty of mana from the Marwyn though. That is going to tap for 3 mana at the moment. Oh, and that's a good one. That is a Seedborn Muse. If anything's going to get you back into the game, it's a horrendously white-bordered Seedborn Muse. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries from the 5-colour player. They finally got their red mana up. And then target player mills 2, pointing that at the Lonus. And in response, they crack a Clue token. They mill Ongoing Investigation and a Forest. Now, because we've got a player with a bunch of creatures in play, the Defense of the Heart is going to trigger. So we have to sacrifice Defense of the Heart, and preferably I would have Renata already in play, or something that is going to have Walking Ballista enter with counters on it, but yeah, it's not going to happen here, unfortunately. So it's probably just Champion of Lamhall is a good enabler for counters, and then we'll get the Renata into play as well, because once again that enables counters as well. Champion of Lamhall does see the Renata enter play alongside it, but it doesn't enter with the plus counter from Renata, so we couldn't go for Renata and Walking Ballista there because they enter at the same time. Renata would already have to be in play in order for the Walking Ballista to enter with the counter on it. And then Sylvan Library going to trigger as well, and we'll put land on top. I don't think Wild Growth particularly matters either. We'll pay 4 life and keep hold of it. Drop a land, throw a Wild Growth onto one of our lands, and then we'll play Garruk's Uprising to try and keep our hand full. That will cantrip when it enters, so drawing into the card that we just threw on top. And then Gaia Sage is only going to be 1 mana, and it will have a plus counter on it, so it will tap for mana. Also buffs the Champion of Lamhall as well, up to a 3/3. Let's get down the Hex Drinker as well. Playing into a board wipe here, but we do have a means of drawing cards with the Return of the Wild Speaker. That evolves the Gaia Sage and buffs the Champion of Lamhall as well. And then we might as well go for Nissa, Voice of Zendikar, for only 2 mana. We can put a plus counter on all of our stuff. It's a good thing our opponent got rid of that Hardened Scales, because I don't know if it was necessarily the correct target, but we have certainly not doubled up on the counters as much as we would have done if we'd had the Hardened Scales available to us. And then with that, I'm going to hold on to Return of the Wild Speaker for during one of my opponent's turns. Let's activate the Aurum Reef the Vastwood, put counters on our Summoning 6 stuff again, and then we might as well just level this up as much as we can. So the Hex Drinker is now a 9/9 with protection from everything. Let's give... Yeah, we actually can't equip it with haste now that it has protection from everything. Let's just go for the Renata, which is a 23/5 with trample. None of the creatures on our opponent's side of the field can block. There may be some mass bounce that we have to worry about though. We'll just try and get as close to taking out the Lonus player as possible. So the Firstborn, going to put counters on everything again, buff them even further. I think we have 59 damage on them here. I think we're going to be taking them out if they aren't able to do anything. Okay, managing to take that player down. We get 5 Kodama triggers, so getting closer and closer to stripping our library of basics. And I suppose we should make some extra mana with the Gaia Sage, give that haste and shroud over the next turn cycle. Although I can't say we'll need extra mana with the Gaia's Cradle, will we? Haven't been up against the strongest opponents here. There's been little to no interaction. And yeah, we got rid of the Ur Dragon pretty quickly, which is by design, of course. Did that on purpose. So it's time to see if the 5-colour player is going to be able to do anything to us here. They're going to go up to 6 cards in hand after milling us. Get rid of a Crawling Barrens and a Stonecoil Serpent. Okay, that is a brilliant ultimatum. Exile the top 5 cards of your library and opponent separates them. You may play lands and cast spells from one of those piles. So we basically need to keep our opponent off a board wipe here. Okay, Teferi or a Sanctum. You can have a Sanctum and all the other mana, or you can have the Teferi. That's actually a pretty easy split. And they just decided to scoop it up there. Yeah, admirable that they decided to play it out. They might have been able to get a couple of board wipes off there, and then we wouldn't have been able to separate the board wipes. But at that point, I would have gone for Return of the Wild Speaker, drawn a load of cards, and hopefully got into Heroic Intervention to protect our board. The combo that I was referring to is Rite of Passage. So whenever a creature you control is dealt damage, put a counter on it. And then, I don't think I ever saw Walking Ballista this game, but I'll put it up on the screen. Walking Ballista has counters on it. You can remove a counter from it and have it deal a damage to something. So if you've got this in play, it won't remove the damage, but something like the Vigor will remove the damage. And then you can just put infinite counters on things. You can make infinite damage because of that, because the Ballista can deal damage to itself. That makes use of the doubling of plus counters with things like the Hardened Scales and Branching Evolution. Pier is in here as well. So yeah, that's basically the combo. There's lots of different types of combinations of cards that you can use to get that going, but it's pretty much Walking Ballista and Rite of Passage to keep doubling up on plus counters all the time, and basically give the Walking Ballista infinite plus counters and therefore infinite damage on all of your opponents. Didn't see it here, but if you want to see this deck again, then be sure to let me know and I'll try and get that combo off. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.